Alright guys, so it is Saturday and it's probably just a little bit past lunchtime. I've gotten a late start today. I had to work on my truck. I had to go to Tractor Supply and buy some stuff, but I'm getting it going. So I'll run you through this. My square body 87 GMC there. It is throttle body fuel injected 305. I drive that every day. It's the only thing I have to drive. But yesterday morning is around 7:15 or 7:20. I took off from my cousin's house to work on his 55 two-door hardtop. He's been paying me to work on his car. Anyway, his house is about 40 to 45 minutes away. So I take off and I get about halfway there and the truck starts running weird. It's cutting out. It doesn't take full throttle. It acted like it was missing on one or two cylinders. So I ended up pulling into a parking lot and I shut it off, opened the hood, looked at everything. Of course, I don't see anything out of the ordinary. Checked all the spark plug connections, everything's hooked up. There is no check engine light on, so that would have helped, but I didn't have a check engine light on that throttle body, so don't know what's going on with it. But anyway, when I started it back up, it was still running rough. I went ahead and drove it back home at about 50 miles an hour. It was a long drive home, but I made it back home with it. And I didn't touch it yesterday. I was mad and it was hot and humid yesterday, so I didn't bother coming out here to work on the truck. I just left it. So this morning I got up early and I come out here. I had an extra coil for that. These throttle bodies, they have this little bitty coil that mounts at the back of the intake, and I had an extra one here, a used one, and I put it on there and the truck runs fine. So I'm assuming the old coil got bad. It's the second time I've changed the coil on this truck. So anyway, but when I change it out, it's always a used one, so that's why. But anyway, I changed the coil out this morning and the truck seems to run fine. It's back like it was. So anyway, I drove to Tractor Supply and bought a few things and come back. It still seems fine. So hopefully it's fixed. Now, to get you on to what I was wanting to get to before I sidetracked everybody and griped about my problems in life here. So I'm working on the frame. I did talk about this in an earlier video that I wanted to try to get this frame painted this weekend because my wife has gone to her mother's, so I have this open spot in the carport. So I've been out here and I got started on it a little bit, and it is going to take a lot of time to do this. Now, I have stated it many times, I am not going to be making a show quality finish on this frame. I don't care about putting mirrors under this four-door. But I am going to do a nice job on it. I am going to do a thorough job on it. I'm just not going to make it absolutely perfect like I did the hardtops chassis. So, this is going to be, at the end of the day, a driver that I can get in and drive and not worry about it. If it's raining, I'm still going to drive it. You know what I mean? It's going to sit right here under the carport even when it's done. Anyway, so the main thing I want really nice on the frame is the front frame stub, just the top side. That's what I want super slick. So like from the very forward body mount right there, which is about where the firewall is, from there forward I want this top section clean. And I mean clean by getting it down to bare metal, and that way when I start painting it, putting the coatings on, that the paint lays down nice. It's not going over, crud and highs and lows and textured spots. I want it to look nice. So I'm going to put my main focus up here trying to make this really, really nice. Now, I don't have the money to take this to my sandblaster and have it blasted because I think it's several $100s or a few $100s to have a frame blasted. I don't have the money. So what I did on my hardtop was I actually blasted the entire chassis right here in the driveway with my portable sandblaster, but it took me 2 full days to do it. So I'm not doing that again. That was I spent, I don't know how much, probably $150 I would imagine on blast media, because you lose a lot of it. But a lot of it I collected here in the driveway and I just swept it up in the pile and sifted it back in there and kept going. But I don't have the money to spend on a bunch of media right now, so my thing is to use regular old tools like this stuff, and then the hard to reach areas that I can't get these tools into, I will use the blaster on. I have 1 bag of media here, and I think I've got probably 1/4 of a pot left in my blaster. But this is what I use. It's Black Diamond. I get this at Tractor Supply. It's about, I think, 12 bucks for a bag. And this is fine. If it's got a red label, it's the fine one. They have a black label. It's, I think, medium or coarse. But I like the fine. It's not really fine, you know what I mean? But Anyway, this is the blaster that I use, and then I got this screen wire thing at Lowe's, and I use this to sift it back in there after I sweep it up in a pile and scoop it back in. But anyway, so I'm going to do all the hard to reach areas with the blaster in this frame that I can't get to. And there's a lot of pockets on this frame that you're not going to be able to get to. You're going to have to use a blaster for that, like up in here, because I'm running tubular control arms, so all this is going to be visible down in here. Down in this, down in here. I mean, there's lots of hard to reach areas I'm going to have to use that blaster on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 10 by 20 foot sheet of plastic. I'm going to move the frame back. I'm going to lay the chassis or the plastic down on the ground right here. I'm going to lift the sides up here and duct tape it to these posts. And then I'm going to duct tape it to the side of the four-door, and that way it's basically shaped like a ditch here. So when I'm blasting these areas, a lot of that media will land on that plastic and roll right back to the middle, so I can just go through there and scoop it up with a, you know, like a cup, a plastic cup, and then sift it back into the pot. So hopefully that one bag and the quarter that I have left in it will get all this stuff done, and I don't have to go spend more money on media. So anyway, that's a plan. And it's going to take, I'd like to paint it this weekend, but the reality of it is half the day's gone already, and I just don't know how far I can get. And also, I haven't checked the weather. If it rains tomorrow, I won't be able to paint this, but it's not going to be a perfect job, but I still want it to look pretty decent, you know what I mean? So anyway, that's the plan. But I definitely want to get this chassis painted, and then I can work on all the other chassis components and get them all cleaned up and painted and get it back as a roller. And then I can bolt it back under the car with my new energy suspension body mounts. And then after that is done, I kind of want to get back on the hardtop. But just in case, I'm really kind of dying to get tore into this old 305 here. If you guys watched that video, I took this out of a Monte Carlo SS I have in the backyard. It's not actually mine. The guy gave me the engine out of it. But anyway, I'm going to be tearing this engine apart and cleaning it all up and basically doing a Krylon rebuild on it. But I'm going to put all new seals and gaskets and everything, rear main and all that back in it. But anyway, that's what's going in the four-door, a little 305. It has like 89,000 actual miles on it, which to me is little miles. But, you know, I haven't pulled the lifters out of the engine yet. If, you know, the cam lobes are flat and the lifters are dished, I'll put a new cam and lifter kit in it. Probably just going to do a stock replacement style cam and lifter kit. I'm hoping all the bearings are good in the engine because I'm taking the crank out to clean everything real well. Because it's been sitting in that car for over a year without heads on it. And although I did have paper towels laying in the lifter valley here, there's all these areas back here that bugs could have got down in. So there's probably spiders and no telling what's down inside that engine, you know what I mean? Dirt daubers, I mean, hell, who knows? So I want to take it completely apart. But I'm hoping the bearings on the rods and the mains are okay enough to reuse. I will keep track of them if I take them out of the block, which more than likely if I take the block down, wash it and everything, probably need to pull the bearings out of it. But I will keep track of them in order and put them back in exactly where they went so I don't get anything mixed up. But I really don't have the money to buy another set of rings and you know, rods and main bearings to put it all back together, overhaul it, or I would. Even though it's only a few $100s, it's a few $100s I don't have. This is an extreme low budget built car. This engine ran fine, it didn't smoke, so in my eyes, it's worthy of just, you know, cleaning it up and putting it back together. But if there are worn components, I will replace them. But otherwise, they're going back in it. I am going to replace the timing chain because that thing's probably got one of them old nylon gears in it that ain't ever worth a crap. But I have a new double roller timing chain up there on the shelf already. So one of them $20, you know, Cloyes, however it's called, timing chain, old double roller. So I will replace the timing chain. But anyway, after the engine's painted, you know, assembled and painted orange, I'm just spray painting it with Duplicolor engine enamel, Chevy orange. I've got a short tail Turbo 350 right here, trans, that was a good used one, but it's set and now I can't get it to shift, like the valves are stuck. So I am going to pull the pan off, I'm going to remove the valve body, and I'm going to pull all the valves out of the valve body, and I'm going to clean everything in solvent and put it all back together. So this will basically get a little cleanup overhaul type job as well. But anyway, this is a 350 short tail trans, but it's a C, it's electronic, which it doesn't really matter on these. You don't have to plug that in, but it's a unibell, so this works behind, you know, like Buick Olds and Pontiac as well, but it's also small block Chevy. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, that's what's going in there. 305 turbo 350 and then a 308 gear 10 bolt. So as far as getting on down the highway, man, it ought to cruise. And I gotta tell you, since we're on the chassis subject, I've got a set of shocks for the back that are for a G-body, and I'd modified them. I think I have them in the car. I think I took them out because I painted this back here. Anyway, I have a set of newer G-body shocks, which are not really right, and I built a mount for one of them to use in there. I'm trying to find that shock to show you. I don't know if I've showed it in the video or not. I might have already took them to the shed. I built a mount to turn it into a 55 shock, but I still have to build the mount for the other one and everything. And I got to looking at shocks. I was like, I'll go ahead and buy a set of shocks. Man, shocks are expensive. I remember 10 or 15 years ago, you go get a shock for like 20 bucks at the parts store. Now they're like 30 bucks. So when you got to buy 4 shocks, you're going north of 100 bucks by the time you pay tax and everything. So I looked around on eBay a little bit, and there was a set of Monroes on there, front and rear. The Monroe Gasmatics or whatever they're called, they're blue, and it was like 90 bucks, I think, for all 4 with free shipping. I think that's a pretty good buy, so I may do that. I definitely want 4 matching shocks, same brand. I did find some KYBs on there. They're lower brand, or their lower version, I should say. They have black ones and then they have silver ones. The silver ones are a little bit more money, but and I think the yellow ones are even more money. But the base model shocks, those were like 115 bucks, I think, for all 4. So it's one of them deals where you can, well, a little $20 more, $30 more type of thing, but I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But I don't have any front shocks, so I definitely need front shocks. But those rears that I got for a G-body, I can actually modify and make them work. But it would be nicer just to bolt on some, factory replacement shocks. Now this is a controversial subject for Tri-5 Chevy guys, but I'm just going to give you my 2 cents. I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks. These cars, the rear shocks go through the floorboard back here. It has a double layered piece spot welded on for strength. You can see it around here. Now a lot of times when you drag one of these cars in, this is all cracked and broken back here. The thing about it is, when you think about it, back when these cars were new, and even after they were newer a little bit, we didn't have roads like we have now. It was a lot of dirt roads, bad potholed roads that just beat the crap out of the suspension on these cars. So nowadays, especially where I live, I couldn't even tell you where a dirt road is around here. It's all paved around here. So I am not going to mess with doing a shock bar. I'm just going to put a stock replacement shock in there. It'll be just fine. So just my personal opinion. Everybody's got their own opinion and think they have to have a shock bar, and that's fine. I am not going to be running one. So less work, less money. I could build one, but I'm not going to. So there's that. But anyway, hopefully I can get this frame cleaned up today and get a little bit of work done. But I am going to bet it takes the rest of the day today and probably at least half the day tomorrow, and maybe I can paint it tomorrow. Just have to see. But I have some paint. I've run through this before, but I'll run through it again. I've got some paint over here. This is what I'm going to use on my frame, and it's because I have it here. This stuff is not very expensive. This is Rust-Oleum, and it's farm implement. I got this at Tractor Supply, and I want to say this is like, it's like 10 bucks or something for a quart. And this stuff is for tractors and that type of stuff that gets left outside and used. So in my opinion, this is probably a durable paint. But you got to keep in mind, Rust-Oleum products, every one of them that I've ever used, it takes longer for the stuff to dry. So, it is what it is. And this not being a show car, I really don't care. But anyway, I used just a little bit out of this can on my hardtop. I painted the channel for the defroster channel down in there so it's not glossy. And then otherwise that's still pretty full. So basically this is the paint I'm going to put on the car. Now I have this stuff here that I don't even know if it's any good anymore because I've had this on the shelf for years. This is a Matrix self-etching primer, and I have never used this before. Actually, the paint store I used to go to all the time, the guy gave me this stuff, and it's just been on the shelf ever since. But since it's here, I'm going to go ahead and try it. but I hope it's still good. But otherwise, I'm going to spray that stuff on there, and then after it dries or kicks off, I'm just going to mix up that black Rust-Oleum and put right over the top of it. I'm not going to go through and sand it and then put it on. It's just all going on the same day. So it is what it is. If it flakes off after a month, it just flakes off. I don't care. This is not a show car. I just don't want to put a crusty frame back under the car because, you know, I'm going to be under the car changing the oil at times and changing the trans fluid and doing maintenance on the car. And it'd just be nice to climb under the car and it be clean and, you know, not get your clothes completely crusty, rusty, and nasty, dirty trying to just change the oil or something, you know what I mean? So, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I've already done the perfect thing, or well, close enough to perfect for me, and that's on this car. I have lots of videos on my channel way down there on the frame on this car, and I spent months on this frame making this thing super slick and nice, and I'm not going through that again on any car. This done it for me, so you know, this being a driver, it's one of them occasions where it's good enough. But anyway, guys, I am going to cut it off here. I think I'll take my dog out to use the bathroom, and then I'm going to have me a glass of tea. Then I'll come back out here and start sweating it all out again. But I have decided that since I can put videos together now, which I just figured this out the other day, but I got my tripod out here. I'm going to video as I go through, and then I'll try to put the videos together as one to show this deal. So, oh, I got time, 16:30. Let me just run through this real quick. I don't know if I covered this. This is a, you know, every time I sand a frame or sand a car, we'll say a whole body, I use an air-powered DA sander, unless I chemical strip it. But you know, with an air compressor, it pretty much, when you start using a DA, your air compressor just stays running. So you know, I wouldn't be able to DA sand the whole car in a day because it'd burn my air compressor up. I actually borrowed this from my mom and dad, and I am super impressed because I always refer to these as something that you'd use for woodworking, but it has a Velcro sandpaper pads, and these pads you can get anywhere. They have them at Walmart, Atwoods, Tractor Supply. They have them everywhere, and they're cheap. So anyway, this is electric, and I can plug it in and just rock and roll. And I've already done, with one pad, all of this, just smoothing this out clean. So I gotta say, I'm impressed. I'm easily impressed. Thanks for watching.